Hello, Tucker.
Hello. How's it
Tucker is
going, man?
welcome. Welcome to hotsticks.fm.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm I'm doing very well. I was just filming in a favela in Rio, um, and having quite the experience of my life. So I'm doing very,
Okay.
yeah, and I'm very excited to talk with you. You have such a strange and interesting career. I mean, playing like hard music, but then also playing in a boy band. It's a combo that I've not experienced before. So I want
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
to get in. I want to get into how you switch gears as a drummer. Um, and I'm also pleased to know that you, I believe, sit on DW stool. Is that correct?
I do. I do. I use DW hardware for sure.
Well, I'm a DW air drummer going way back. In fact, in my movie Adventures of Power, my character doesn't ever sit at any drums, but in the final competition, he does sit on a stool against his principles because he believes that you should be in squat position, but he sits on a DW stool, which is sabotaged by the enemy. Um,
Ah.
but there's a little product placement because I'm friends with Don Lombardi, so like it zooms in to the DW on the stool. So
Absolutely. That's
like
important.
it's gonna be obvious about it. So like close up of the DW. So well, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've a lot I want to talk with you about, but it's specifically, because we get different kinds of drummers out on here, and some who are really focused on metal. I mean, I've had a lot of sort of heavy drummers, and you play in a very, heavy band or post. What you calling it post-hardcore? You're now calling it post-hardcore now that you've had 3 reunions, I believe.
I
Is
mean,
it
I guess
eight?
it could be post hardcore, but
Okay, PP hard. I know
yeah,
you have
PP hardcore.
since you have a Birdie Dillon is that
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
little birdie. Yeah, she
so
just turned 2.
I think she might appreciate PP hardcore as a kind of like new style of drumming.
Yeah, yeah, especially because she's starting to potty train soon. So,
Yeah.
we're the PP word gets thrown around a lot here.
Okay, well, if you if you want to go 50-50 with me on the patent for that, we could do a whole line um, of, I don't know what it would be, toilet seats that you could drum on, I'm
That's a
thinking.
deal. You
Yeah.
had me at hello. So
Yeah. Okay. I see you're a skater too. This ultimately will be on audio, but those of you who are listening, Tucker is flanked by 2 beautiful, definitely custom skateboards. Do you want to tell us what's there and describe it for those who are only listening?
so over this shoulder is my buddy Frank's band, who I played in. It's called Franke, Iero, and the Future Violence, and that's the first single was called Young and Doomed.
Those of you who don't know, guitarist for MCR, who has his own beautiful albums, a couple albums, like 2 albums, right, or 3?
I think there's 3. Yeah,
Yeah,
3.
2 plus an EP, if I've done my research correctly. I try
I
to keep.
believe so. Yeah.
I may know better than you.
I mean, but I only played in one incarnation of them.
Okay. Are you scared that you're going to get replaced by an air drummer like me?
I'm always scared. I'm scared of everything.
Okay. Okay, good. Um,
And over this shoulder is an old skateboard that my band put out a bunch of years ago. This guy named Brian Dory from Hooligan Skate Company makes these decks, and we gave him some artwork, and he threw it on there, and it looks great. So, but yeah, I used to skateboard. I don't really anymore because I feel like that's the kiss of death if you want to be a professional drummer.
yeah, yeah, it's true. I mean, I have a titanium in my wrist from biking, and I broke my arm while shooting my air drum movie, Adventures of Power, and it, I had to stop production, but I did shoot a couple scenes with a cast. So if you watch the movie, you can see there's a few scenes where where I didn't air drum. We kind of like looked for the very few scenes where I'm not air drumming and shot those, and my arm is kind of down on the side. And one gag where I had to tear off my sweatpants and I couldn't because I couldn't move my arm, so I just had to fly off by attaching them to a phone booth, and then ran away from the phone booth and then get pulled off. But you know,
see, these are the things that I'm, knock on wood, trying to avoid.
yeah. So and Thursday is about to open for My Chemical Romance on tour, right?
Yeah. I believe that's in September, October, something like that.
Didn't you play for My Chemical Romance as well at one point, or am I correct?
I did in 2007 or 2008. I did a month playing drums for them when their drummer at the time was injured. They called me and I went in and filled in for, I think it was like 7 or 8 shows. It was the Pacific Rim. It was like Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Singapore.
Okay, so you must be
Hawaii.
friends with the drummer in such a way that you guys can, you know, he doesn't feel scared of you taking his position in any permanent way, but you will be on tour with him again. So if he were to get in a skateboarding accident, I'm not saying he will, but if he were to get in a skateboarding accident, you might just happen to be on tour with them. I'm just saying.
Well, he's 2 or 3 drummers ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Nonetheless, you'll be on tour and you know the songs. So you'll be air drumming to My Chemical Romance after.
Yes. We actually, it was funny. We actually did their comeback show in 2019 in LA, and I was, you know, sitting with Frank, and I was like, I think like I'm the only drummer in this room that has played almost every single song that we played in the building tonight.
Yeah.
It was just a funny little thing that went through my head.
Yeah. Well, actually, you don't know in the building because there could be fans out there who have learned everything by Thursday and everything by MCR.
But not on stage.
Not on stage. Yes, that's true. That's true. Well, unless
I hope
they could be playing in their high school cover bands.
I hope they all know all the Thursday and My Chemical Romance songs. I hope they've played them, because that's what we do this for, right? To inspire people and make them, you know.
It's the whole reason that I make art. It's the reason I make movies. I hope that people who watch my movies are changed by them in some small way. Maybe I infect their dreams with some kind of positive message. Adventures of Power is a comedy that is extremely positive ultimately in its messaging, and I got a lot of flack for that when it came out, but now I think the world has gotten so messed up that I think people like the positive message more. Like, I toured through Eastern Europe showing the film, and people were, you know, of course hadn't heard of it because it's just a small movie, but like now it's like people are really like wanting it, and with the stuff that's going on out the window where I'm sitting right now in terms of people being afraid of a certain neighbor, you know, positivity is a good thing.
I think we need it. I think we need a little PMA.
Yeah. Wait, PMA. What is PMA?
Positive mental attitude.
Oh, okay. And we need PDA, because there's nothing to bring out PMA like PADA.
Exactly. Everyone loves a hug.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I just have to hear a little bit about you playing drums for The Wanted, which is, for those who don't know, it's a boy band from UK.
Yeah, from the UK.
Okay.
So when Thursday was on Island Records, and we had this person that worked with us named Eric Wong, and when Thursday kind of took a hiatus in 2011, I messaged him and I was like, hey, you know, if there's any artists that you have up and coming or something, and they need to do a showcase, or if you need somebody a touring drummer or whatever, please don't hesitate to ask, because Thursday is off right now, and you know, rather than, you know, give up my want and need to play drums for a living, and you know, I would like to work for anybody who you have at you know. And literally a week later he called me and he was like, yeah, I've got this band, and they're doing a showcase next week. And I need you to put together a guitar player and a bass player, and you know, would you be down? And I was like, yeah, anything for you. I was like, what are they called? He's like, The Wanted. And I was like, okay, cool. And at the time, I was playing on Thursday, and I was also playing in a hardcore band called Murphy's Law, which is like a legendary New York hardcore band. And so I just assumed that, you know, my resume shows, like you said, post-hardcore, punk, you know, heavier music. So I was like, oh, that must be like a punk band with a name like The Wanted. So like I agreed without you know, knowing anything about the band. And then, like, you know, I kind of looked up a song afterwards, and I was like, oh man, this is literally a boy band. And I was like, and I messaged him back. I was like, is this the right thing that I'm looking back? He's like, yes, this is it. And I was like, okay, all right, well, let's make it work. So I hit up two of my friends, Eric Odness on bass and Brian Deneve, who played guitar. And we learned the songs, and we played with them for a couple of years until they went on a hiatus themselves.
So how does that work? It's like the boy band's out front. Are you guys like technically part of the band, or are you like, how does the market?
We are just the backing band. So we are basically a crew.
Okay.
You know, which is awesome, which is, you know, you have, the only responsibility you have is to show up and play the songs correctly. You never want the artist to turn around and give you a scathing look because you played it wrong. You know, you want them to feel like
Right.
they can unleash their vocals on the crowd without having to worry about what's happening behind them.
Right. Okay. You could have like a, you know, infection coming out of your cheek, and you know, blood coming down the other side of your face, and it wouldn't matter because they're not looking. No one's looking at you. You're like
No one would
the
no
opera.
one would know, and no one would care. They'd be like, get a Band-Aid.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that does sound good. Although it sounds actually, in a way, stressful, because at least if you're part of the band, you can rock out, and when you do a, you know, some kind of like double bass roll that kind of like goes off the rails, it's sort of buried under the guitars, and your energy makes up for it by it being, you know, high energy. But with this, like, it's probably super crisp in the mix, and like every hit is like amplified in a terrifyingly clear way. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah, and most of these shows were, well, at least in the UK and a couple other places, were arenas. So it's, you know, it's very big sounding. And then a lot of the shows that we did were TV performances, which is even more scary because everything is so under a microscope because it's trapped on television forever. So, you know, and a lot of the stuff in the States, this was we were, you know, basically, this was the first time people in the States were hearing this band. So like we did Ellen DeGeneres, and that was their first television performance in the United States. So it was, you know, it's pretty important to be, you know, as humanly perfect as possible when it comes to playing your part of the music.
Yes. So humanly perfect is a term that I think might be an interesting question for a drummer, because like obviously with quantizing and mixes, you know, quantizing when you're recording, like a lot of drummers get turned inhumanly perfect, particularly in, like, and it's horrifying to me that there's so much hard music that's quantized. And I mean, when you work with Dave Fridman, right?
I did.
What did he do? Some Thursday records, is that right?
Yeah, he did 3 Thursday records. So we've done a lot of recording with him.
Yeah, so super obsessive with sound, but also with feel. I would imagine that he's not sitting there like carving out like the exact, you know, spot for each hi-hat thing, or is
No,
he doing?
no, absolutely not. We are, the take is the take. You know what I mean? Like if everyone in the room is like, oh, that was good, and you listen back and nothing is like wildly sticking out, then that's the take. He's very much about vibe and about, you know, the sonics of everything. So it's more about the performance and the feel than it is about striving for perfection, you know.
So when you work with
But
him, you track just like bass and drums first, or is the whole band playing, or what's happening?
the whole band is playing, and we're basically trying to, you know, keep as much as possible. You know, obviously there's overdubbing when it comes to guitars and bass, but you know, it's about the performance, and you know,
Wait,
it's about
the initial, he's laying down vocals live too?
vocals usually come later, you know, because we, you know, with that you got to kind of save the voice a little bit, and you know, a lot of times with Thursday, our singer Jeff is still kind of working out vocal parts even in the studio, you know, so he's got a lot of it done and down and ready to go, but you know, there's a lot of fine tuning that's still happening before he goes to actually record his vocals.
Right. Okay. Okay. But basically you're talking about like at least 80% of the track is like that initial take.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless somebody, you know, I mean, there's been songs that we've scrapped a whole guitar part, you know, and been like, okay, let's re-record that part, you know.
You're all in
But for the
isolation. You're in
yeah, we're all
isolation.
pretty much all in isolation, and yeah, it's about getting, you know, obviously at first it's all about the drums, getting the drums good, you know, the whole everything can be scrapped except for the drums, you know, so if the drums are good, we're good, and people can overdub afterwards, but I know a lot of the vibe that we were trying to capture was live.
Mm-hmm. My mom was in recording sessions as a girlfriend. Well, it's a whole other story. But for Santana, where they'd have like, you know, 15 guys in a room, and because of the number of musicians they'd have, and the time period, they weren't in isolation at all. And she talked about, like, you know, they do a track and they play it for like 4 days over and over. If one conga hit was off or just had bad feel or whatever, they, you know, light would come on and they'd have to go back to one again. I don't know how they kept the like the energy going, but
See, that to me is crazy, and it sounds painful but awesome at the same time, because I always say this, like, I feel like any song I've ever recorded, I'm the worst at it when I'm recording it. You know, it's not till after and you go on tour, you know, you take it on the road, do you get good at playing your own song. You know, you spend a lot of time molding this, putting this thing together that you only like, you know, you're not taking it on the road and actually like going through the fine tuning and like learning what feels right. You like,
I lost you. I can't hear you suddenly.
sorry, that somebody called me.
Oh,
Somebody
okay.
called me, so I had to hang up. I was just saying that, like, you know, I always feel like I'm the worst at playing the song when I'm recording it. You know, it's not till afterwards, and I've sat with it and I've heard every single thing that's happening and the vocal part that you
Right.
actually kind of get good at playing the song.
You go back in the studio again.
No, I wish I could a lot, you know, but yeah, once it's done, it's done, you know, and you got to live with it.
So with editing a movie, like, you know, once you figure out the edit of a movie and you've cut out, you know, half of the dialogue and maybe 20% of the scenes, then you look back and you're like, oh, now that I know what the movie should be, I'd love to go back and shoot it and really, really get that stuff right. But, you know,
Yeah.
can't do
That's
that.
also kind of the beauty of it, you know what I mean? Because you make it work, you know?
Yeah. We got a question from someone asking how you got the Seth Meyers gig.
Um, I think just I don't really know, to be honest with you. I was at a Netflix premiere of a drummer show, which I don't know if it ever aired, but
I don't want to hear what
and
it's called.
what's that?
What's it called? Because I'm actually talking to people at Netflix about like trying to get them to, because I have Adventures of Powers on Amazon and it should be on Netflix, and there's the Fred Armisen drum.
That was what it was for Fred Armisen.
Oh, okay, so they did run it.
Oh, they did run it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know that I ever saw it, but I know that this was like an initial kind of like check it out, you know. So
Yeah.
I went to it, and it was a bunch of like, because I lived in Brooklyn at the time. It was a bunch of us local New York drummers hanging out, and Eric Lederman, who's the producer of Late Night Seth, just came up to me and was like, hey, you know, he's like, I know we know a lot of people in common. He's like, but I would like to have you on the show. So I think a lot of it had to do with, you know, being friends with a lot of the same people, but also being a local drummer. And, you know, with that show, it's always good to have something, you know, they like to have something to promote for you as the drummer, which this is the first show that I know of that, you know, actually, you know, shows drummers some love, you know, besides like, you know, Conan with Max Weinberg. This is a totally different thing. We have a rotating cast of like pro drummers come in, and I just it's a really it's been a really great thing for the drumming community.
Yeah. Hold on, we got another question here that was long. Is there plans to release the Three War All the Time outtakes for its 20th anniversary?
Are there plans for it? Not at this point in time, but you know, I guess we're open to suggestion. I don't know.
I guess that is a suggestion right there. From,
yeah.
So and so let's see. I mean, what I know that your home life and having you have one daughter, is that right?
I have a daughter, yeah.
So how do you negotiate life, you know, on the road with being a new dad or new-ish dad?
Well, luckily for me, and also unluckily for me and the rest of the world, when the pandemic hit, she was born on March 27th of 2020. So we were literally, you know, I don't know, 20 days into the pandemic. So I was able to spend basically the first year and 8 months of her life at home, which wouldn't have happened had it been, the world would have been normal, quote unquote. So I got really lucky in that aspect. But now when you know, I've gone on a couple tours, you know, recently, and you know, my wife works from home, but she's got a very demanding job. So she's, you know, she has an office in the house, and so if I'm away, we have to either hire someone or one of our parents comes over and watches her. But for me, it's a pain in the ass because, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say ass, but I just said it twice.
You're talking about donkeys, right?
Yes, donkeys. Yeah,
So
yeah. So she you know, at about a year and 9 months, they're not very good at FaceTime. You know, they take the phone and they run around the house with it. So that could get a little bit like, oh, I miss my daughter, but like she doesn't really want to talk to me. She just wants to run around the house with the phone in her hand. So it's, you know, that was tough, but you know, she's getting older. She's starting to understand that you know, she hits stuff. She hit me with a drumstick today so hard in my wrist that my wife heard it from another room. So she knows what. Yeah, she heard the
yelp.
She heard the smack and the expletive afterwards.
Right. Okay.
The donkey afterwards.
Yeah, the donkey. Yeah. Well, I mean, it does sound in a way like the pandemic timing was helpful, you know, for your daughter and you to bond.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in a way, hats off to you for timing that.
I know.
So what I'd love to know, you know, my air drumming career started with John Bonham and Neil Peart. What did your drumming obsession start with, and who were you air drumming to before you actually picked up drums?
Oh man, I mean, I didn't start playing until I was 18, like an actual drum kit. But prior to that, you know, I remember like getting early Motley Crue records and early Metallica records and air drumming whatever I thought was the drum. You know, like a lot of the things I was doing with my hands were actually happening with their feet. You know what I mean? So it wasn't until later in life that I started going to like hardcore and punk shows that I could actually watch the drummer play, and then I understood what sounds they were making with what limbs. So I was always laser focused. So I found a lot, like Bonham was a huge influence on me, you know, once I got to the drum kit. You know, Stuart Copeland was a huge influence on me because I love how tight he plays. He's just a machine.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about hi Daniel, I have a friend who is a friend in many ways, but also can I talk about your refugee from Ukraine? We were shooting in Ukraine a film of mine and in very recently, and now I think he's in Paris, but he is supporting our all air drum all the air drum things. I just want to give a shout out to him. But so
Awesome.
hi, Dan. Um, yeah, Stuart Copeland was a huge influence. I mean, I was in the last week's podcast or the week before. I've gotten a little confused, but we're talking about how the sound of Stuart Copeland's snare. There's something about that I think just the backbeat, just his snare alone galvanized a lot of people to play the drums. It was something so
100%.
sexy. It was like powerful, but also light on his feet. You know, obviously I love the sound of Led Zeppelin drums, and as a kid I was like scared of them, but also excited by it. But Stuart Copeland's drums always sounded like it was like your heartbeat in a really positive way, like pushing you forward, and like, wow, each time it's like, ah, ooh,
Yeah.
And it's amazing how a drummer can have a sound that, like, I mean, how much do you think that's him versus the producers? And in your relationships, you've had different producers. Like, are you sort of insistent on a certain sound for your tuning and for your snare and your toms, or you kind of go with the flow based on the album?
I kind of go, I always have a sound in mind when I go in, like a record that inspired me or a drum sound that inspired me on a certain record. But, I always go with what feels best, you know what I mean? And if it sounds like cool enough, I know people tweak the sound, afterwards. And so I always try to get it, close to what's in my head, but what's in my head changes constantly. And someone like Stuart Copeland, like, he is just him, you know what I mean? There's he's got a touch to the drums that is different than anyone else. And he also has this kind of, frenetic energy that I think is almost off the rails, but somehow is glued together completely at the same time. It's really fun to watch him play, and it's also really fun to hear him play because you can hear that energy in the recordings.
Yeah. I mean, he grew up not listening to rock music. I think that's one of the major things about him. He was in Lebanon and Egypt and places like that, so he was getting all kinds of influence that was not straight backbeat music.
Yeah. And I think that's why the Police became the Police, because it's just its own thing. You can tell that these people came from all different backgrounds to make this crazy punk band.
Yeah. So okay, so those were we have pretty similar influences. I was air drumming to I wasn't so much air drumming to Motley Crue, although I admire the rotating cage for sure.
Yeah. And the stick twirls. You had to get into the stick twirls too. That was
when I'm in the Guinness Book, as of course everyone in the streets is screaming right now, hey, there's in the Guinness Book for air drumming. But when I did my Guinness Book or Guinness World Record thing, they wanted four drummers to be included, and I did a Neil Peart roto tom fill, and I did a Tommy Lee stick twirl. I would have done the rotating cage, but I don't know how to levitate myself yet. So
yeah.
I do meditate, so maybe if my meditation practice stays consistent, I'll be able to levitate and do the Tommy Lee rotating cage without any gear.
Exactly.
So that's
the time that you have to protect your title, and I think this is the way to do it.
Oh yeah, it's true. Somebody might come along. I did hear someone coming along saying, well, yeah, I'm going to trying to get in the Guinness Book for air drumming. And I was like, wait a minute, we got to talk.
No.
Yeah. I conducted 2,300 people, I think it is. So that's the current record. I was like conducting an air drum ensemble. So if anyone wants to try to top that, let me know.
Yeah. Good luck.
Good luck. Well, we're at our half-hour mark. I've been trying to now keep these to half an hour because the punk in me wants to be a little bit more like Napalm Death, where there's like a really long title and a really short song. You know, those
Yeah.
have, you know, songs that are like the ectoplasm of your exploding small intestine that made me want to kill 40,000 people. And the song goes, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like 8 seconds of blast beat, and then they're out.
Yeah. Do you have any advice? I guess that's a big thing, you know, for the show, because like there are a lot of people end up listening to it who are aspiring drummers, or these days, you know, there's this big thing, obviously, of Instagram drummers, people who learn incredible technique by themselves. But then the question is, how do they become artists who can work with other people in a room or on a stage? Do you have any advice that you can share?
I mean, I think, you know, I think be kind, first of all, and I really think that you know, first of all, the drumming isn't like a competition. You know, we should all be helping one another learn and get further and whatever it is. But I also think that, you know, it's really 50% proficiency at the instrument, but also 50% at being a person that can be a good roommate on tour and be a good you know, vibe on tour. And you know, it's a lot of both, you know, because the road can be a dark place and a tough place to be, and a lot of the things that come along with drumming and being in a band look so glamorous, but in reality you're literally sitting in a dank dressing room for most of your day, like looking at, you know, drawings on the wall that people have left prior. So
Right.
it's, you know, you have to have a good vibe and be a good person, and then also, you know, practice should be fun. I'm in my practice room right now because as soon as we get off, I'm going to practice because my daughter is sleeping. So
Nice.
you know.
Wait, so that's going to wake her up?
No, because my studio is in my garage, which is detached from my house. That's the only reason my wife wanted to move to the suburbs. And I was like, if we do that, I need a garage that's detached from the house so no one wakes up and no one can complain.
My daughter's asleep, so I'm going to start playing my drums.
Yeah, right next to her.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing some of your wisdom with the hotsticks.fm world. And I encourage everyone to go out on tour and check out Thursday. That's opening for My Chemical Romance, starting when?
Sometime in September, I think, October, I don't know. Somewhere around there.
Now, and keep drumming and create good things in the world, because there's a lot of effed up stuff going on. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a really fun time.
Yeah. Okay. Enjoy your practice.
Thank you.
All right.
Take
Ciao.
care.